Leap of Fate podcast fans. Welcome to this week's episode with yours truly, Randy Silver. As always, the Leap of Fate is around overcoming adversity, overcoming life lessons, learning life lessons, understanding how you can better yourself. This week's episode is a mini bonus type of episode. We're going to go over how you can be a great podcast guest and get yourself on podcasts to share your message. Thank you so much to everybody who's come on my podcast. You guys have all been great guests. Last week with Sean Foley, we talked all about what it takes to be a great public speaker. You guys saw he's an amazing public speaker. His diction is really good. The way he commands the microphone, his public background, his speaking skills, fantastic. In addition to the content we created for that, we went over what it takes to be a good guest and how you become a good guest. A lot of you people out there ask me, hey, Randy, can I come on Leap of Fate? Great. What's the meaning? What do you want to come on Leap of Fate about? What are we going to talk about? I don't know, something. That's not going to make me want to be able to get you on, because there needs to be a subject matter, a key theme that we're trying to share with the audience. So today we want to talk about how you can have that and impact other people's lives with the message you have. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to give a brief overview. We're going to bring it back to my interview with Sean, and then we'll do a recap at the end. Before we get into it, as always, Leap of Faith fans, love y'all. Thank you so much for all the feedback, all the support, all the love. You guys continue to surprise me with all you provide me. Thank you so much. It resonates. Please like, please subscribe, please follow Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of it at Leap of Fate Pod on all the channels, Leap of Fate, and of course myself, Randy Silver 09. Thank you. So let's dive into it. So again, I'm going to give a quick 2-3 minute overview. We'll dive into it and then we'll go in. What you hear Sean and I talk about are 3 key themes for you. 1, using the resources around you. There's websites such as Podit, which has now become Podmatch, podmatch.com. And that's where you can create a public profile. You can talk about your interests and why people want to bring you on the podcast. We'll dive all into it. And then people will find you and they'll be able to say, hey, Randy, your message resonates with my audience. I want to bring you on, or vice versa. You can find podcasts that have the same message you're trying to do. And great. Then you can reach out and try to get on. There's Facebook groups, there's Instagram groups, there's Reddit pages. So you go on there, you obviously use your public profiles and you interact with people, and people are always trying to find guests for the podcast. People are always trying to, as a podcast host, reach out to a new network. As a podcast guest, you're trying to find new podcasts to go on. You hear Sean talk about he's been on like 60, 70 podcasts easily. And it's because he's putting himself out there to let his message be shown. So what are you trying to talk about? Maybe you're a sales rep and you're really good at sales and you want to talk about how people can get better at sales. Like what Sean talked about, public speaking. You like sports. You want to go on the sports podcast and just shoot the shit. You like me and you want to help people overcome adversity. Maybe you've dealt with a traumatic experience in your life, and hearing that and sharing that experience will help others understand how they can achieve whatever they want. Whatever it is, I promise you got a story and people want to hear it. But if people don't know about you, then they're not going to bring you on. So a lot of people, again, have reached out to me and said, hey, Randy, I want to come on. I'd love to talk about the story. And there needs to be a backing to it so we can bring you on, make it engaging for the audience, and make it something that people want to hear. So how do you do it? Again, we talked about the Facebook groups, Instagram groups, Podmatch, all this type of stuff. Again, sometimes if you have a following already, people will reach out to you and want to reach out. And, you can use LinkedIn, other avenues. If there's podcasts you listen to, hit up the person who's the host or the people who produce the show and ask them, hey, how do I get a chance to join the podcast? Hey, are there other podcasts you recommend I could join and work my way up? So there's a lot of stuff you can do. Sean and I go over it so well. I really like what we talked about. So we're going to dive right into it. Again, this will be about 15, 20 minutes. Sean and I talk about what it takes to be a good guest, doing your pre-work on the podcast, being able to tie references of the podcast theme to your story so people are relevant and people understand the subject matter and its key themes week over week. And of course, you have to be entertaining, smiling all the time when you're talking, and people are going to want to hear or listen or watch what you're doing. So let's dive into with Sean, and then we'll come back for the recap.
Because I mean, I do this all the time. This is my, let's double check, because I don't want to lie to you. Let's double check. My 161st podcast in 80 days.
Wow. That's right? Impressive. You're averaging 2 a day, pretty much.
I do, right? How did you find me, Randy? What am I? This is my
number one on Podmatch.
Number one on Podmatch. What is Podmatch, you ask? If you don't know what Podmatch is, we're gonna do, Randy and I, we're gonna do a shout out to Podmatch right now.
All right, let's go for it.
So Podmatch is basically speed dating for podcast hosts and guests like me to connect. So think speed dating, you know, you swipe left, you swipe right. Randy, he was like, yes, Tyler guy sounds interesting. I was like, hey, I like the sound of this show. Let's do this. And so, you know, now here we are. I'm on Leap of Fate. Randy has an hour to put up with me. But it's all because of Podmatch. But I am the number one ranked guest on Podmatch, have been in the top 10 for the last 6 months, and 3 of the 6 months I was number one. And for the last 2 months, the number one guy, I actually coached on how to be number one. So Robert Riopel is actually somebody who I showed. I'm like, hey, this is how you get to number one on Podmatch. So, right? Student, teacher. And then he surpassed me, which was a beautiful thing to see, to be able to show, to see that my knowledge actually worked. Like that I could teach somebody to do the thing that I had done.
The sensei took the fly from you, unfortunately.
No, well, no, whatever. But the nice thing is who's number one again?
Back to you.
Back to me.
Obviously, you didn't share all your secrets. You didn't share all your secrets. You had to keep something for yourself in the back pocket.
The key is to it's a marathon, not a sprint. So a lot of the people that I've been coaching have been doing the sprint, so they hit it hard.
But what's the criteria to be number one? The number of interviews you get on, or is it what makes you in the top 10 or the number one?
Okay, so ready? We can do a masterclass right now on Podmatch.
Yeah,
okay. So here's
as
what
we
you guys
wrap this up, you guys are getting a masterclass. Let's go for it.
Yeah. So if you are somebody who has a message and you want to get it out there, first of all, Podmatch is the best place that you can do it. So if you want to be a public speaker, you want to do this, if you're paying attention to this episode, you're like, hey, who's the author of The Power to Speak Naked? I want to know more about this public speaking stuff. Podmatch is what I have all my clients do. So you guys are about to get a masterclass from me on how to be number one on Podmatch. The first thing is, so Podmatch is speed dating, which means that you have to set up a profile. Set up a full profile. Don't skip out on the profile. Don't leave details out. Be detailed and be specific with what you want. Don't be wishy-washy, right? The more specific, the more universal you will speak, the more people will seek you out. I am very specific in what I do with my thing. I'm not like, I have an inspirational story about overcoming adversity. No, don't do that. I had a medical incident at 17 that paralyzed the left side of my body and made me think that I would never act again. And I pushed myself through that so that I could be here right now and have a face that does this and not this. Right? Like
you wouldn't even be able to tell at all.
You wouldn't need, well, yeah, if I get tired, you can tell. But right now, I'm going with it. Thank you, Randy. But what I get very specific with who I serve, why I serve them, you know, and I'm a public speaker trainer, #1 best-selling author of The Power to Speak Naked. These are the accomplishments that I have. These are the types of shows that I want to be on, and these are the types of shows that I don't want to be on. And it's okay to say that too, because then you're not getting hassled by applications that you then have to reject. The next thing is, got to be a pro member, got to pay the money. You're not going to get to #1 for free, because Podmatch has 2 categories. It has the free version that gets you 2 matches a day, or it has the paid version, the pro version, which gets you 6 matches or 8 matches every 6 hours or 6 matches every 8 hours. I don't know. What I know is that I get through that list at least once a day, preferably twice. If you can get through the reset and you get through it in the morning and then come back to it in the afternoon and get through it again, that is 6 shows minimum that you get to look at to see whether or not they're good fits for you. Only apply to the ones that are good fits. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is they apply to everyone. And the thing is Podmatch pays attention to your application to acceptance rate. How many people want to work with you? So if you're just blasting out generic applications to these shows, like, Randy, how do you feel when you get an obviously templated application to be on the Leap of Faith? How does it feel?
Not well. More often than not, I probably reject it if it doesn't feel authentic.
Exactly. So think of when you get spammed on Facebook Messenger, right? Do you want that? No, you want to have a personalized message knowing that somebody actually took the time to listen to your show and do a thing. So honing in on that, understanding who your host is and what's important to them, actually reading, and then doing a non-templated, very specific, tailored, customized application to each show that you want to be on is important, because that will increase your acceptance rate. And passing on the ones that don't work. The algorithm rewards you saying, no, this is not a fit, because that's how it learns what is a fit. And if you're saying yes to everything, you're not getting, again, it's not speaking to your niche. So, and then Podmatch has training videos, 10 training videos. You have to take the training videos. The instant you take the training videos, you go to the top third of Podmatch users, because 2/3 of them never do the training videos. So it ranks you higher for doing the training videos. It ranks you higher for rejecting certain shows, for only applying to the ones that work for you, and then just doing it diligently. And then it rewards you for when hosts come and say you did a good job, right? So when Randy and I are done today, hopefully he goes, Tyler brought so much value to my show, and he gives me, he's a thumbs down.
Terrible.
1 star best. I'm not even gonna rate him, right? But the nice thing about Podmatch is you can rank both the guests, the host can rank the guests, and the guests can rank the hosts. And so Randy will be able to say how I did on his show. I can say that I enjoyed being on his show, and then I give him a 5-star rating. He gives me a 5-star rating, and the more 5-star ratings I get, the higher up I go. So like right now, I have 52 written recommendations, and I have over 60 5-star reviews. Not everybody takes the time to type. But on 103 podcasts that I've done through Podmatch, I have, 2/3 of people who have ranked me with a 5-star rating, which pushes me up, right? So showing up and being a good guest, like saying the host's name, Randy, right? Mentioning that what show you're on, that I've appeared on Leap of Faith, right? That those little things add up.
You don't know how many people come on and say Leap of Faith, not Leap of Fate. And I don't like to correct them, but like it's a small thing like that. Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. And you don't want they're the subtle things, but they matter. So being a good guest. So that's half of the training that I do. We can't go into it right now in this masterclass, but just what goes into being a good and thoughtful guest. Like, how do you provide value to your host, and subsequently through him and to you, the listener, because ultimately we're doing it for you.
Yep.
It's not about what Randy and I want to talk about. It's what do you need to hear, and am I providing value to you as a listener? And if I can do that every time repeatedly, I'm going to be on more and more shows. I'm going to get my message out. So if you want to be a public speaker, Podmatch is a great way to do it. Getting into the top 10 so that the hosts know that you're real and legitimate is very helpful. And then showing up each time so that all the hosts are talking amongst themselves, and they're talking in the forum and saying, you got to have this guy on your show. Got to have this girl on your show. They are phenomenal. You have no idea what you're missing if you don't have them on your show. That's how you get your message out.
Woo, y'all. How was that? I think that was fantastic what Sean shared. Let's do a quick recap and let's go over why it's important what Sean talked about and why it's important to understand these key themes to get on the podcast. One, you need to put yourself out there. You need to reach out to people whose subject matter aligns to what you're trying to talk about, your key theme, so that way the audience will like it. Two, creating public profiles on Podmatch, on Facebook, using Instagram, Reddit, reaching out to podcasts you like. You need to put yourself out there. Guests need to be the people sometimes to make sure that people know who you are. On these public profiles, hosts ask, I'm looking for guests. So that way you can comment and you can match with people. You need to be engaging. You need to be funny. You need to be depending on the subject matter. You need to be able to hold a conversation. You need to know when to kind of monologue, but at the same time, when to let the host talk and make it an interesting dialogue. And of course, lastly, the biggest thing of all for me is the message. Is that message gonna resonate with the audience? And if it does, it does. As hopefully my guests on Leap of Fate, sometimes I do solo, but a lot of times I bring guests on. Hopefully that message resonates with you, and the feedback you guys give me, it does. So this is how, again, a big crowdsource one here, how you can be a good guest on the podcast. My name's Randy Silver. Thank you so much for watching. Sean, thank you again for coming on. Part 2 of that episode, a little bonus for y'all. Please follow us at Leap of Fate Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that. On YouTube, Leap of Fate on Apple, Spotify, all the channels. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and do the sign off, y'all. Until next week, stay healthy, stay wealthy. Have a good week, fans. Blah fans, love y'all. Until next one, deuces.